Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, first of all, I just want to say how powerful the presentations were, talking about the tragedy of Minnesota and how all of our hearts go out to the families and to the entire state, because it is obviously something that had a profound impact upon the entire community, and it is something that has all of us grieving for them. And I was just touched, as I think everyone who heard it, with the presentations that we heard. So, Mr. President, I rise today in opposition to the Republicans' big billionaire boondoggle, which is economic sabotage and climate denial masquerading as fiscal policy. Last night's Senate Finance Committee text doesn't just double down on repealing smart, clean energy tax credits. It erodes our progress and our chance at a livable future. Senate Republicans are doubling down on egregious attacks against historic investments in the Inflation Reduction Act, cutting more than $500 billion in investments and programs, threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs and raising monthly household energy bills. In 2024, this is the big number, 2024, 94% of all new electricity generation added to our country was wind and solar and batteries. I want to repeat that. In 2024, 94% of all of the new electrical generation capacity added in our country was wind and solar and batteries. That's 50,000 megawatts of solar, 4,000 megawatts of wind, 11,000 megawatts of batteries. And you compare that with the fuels of the past. Well, last year, only 2,500 megawatts of natural gas were added, and zero from coal. That is the present state of affairs for electrical generation installation in our country in 2025, as we begin this debate in the Senate over the reconciliation bill, over the tax policy for our country. Unfortunately, it's why the oil and gas and coal industry, through the Republicans, are using the budget bill to rig the game while eliminating incentives that lower energy costs and reduce pollution. But they're not going to remove the tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry. So what's about to unfold is that we're going to see the pursuance of a vendetta against wind and solar energy by cutting incentives for the cleanest and cheapest sources of electricity, all to pad the pockets of the big oil and big gas industries. This bill eliminates the residential clean and efficient energy incentives. Let me say that again. If you want to put solar panels on your roof, that tax break is going to be gone. If you want to make your home more energy efficient, that tax break's going to be gone. Heat pumps, all of it is gone, robbing homeowners of the ability to save money on energy bills, breathe safer air indoors at home, and ensure a livable future for their families. And it also removes support for families looking to buy a clean vehicle, an electric vehicle, and saving money at the pump, and imposes draconian restrictions on large-scale solar and wind incentives. That is, the solar and wind installations that the utilities may want to install in our country. So it's a multi-pronged attack upon what is, in 2024, and it's already unfolding again in 2025, the future. It's wind and solar and batteries. And it is unfolding in a way which, again, threatens the incumbent energy sources. And in place of these programs, there's no solutions. There's just more pollution that is going to be what happens as a result of what the Republicans are trying to do with this bill. And you wind up with higher prices, you wind up with fewer jobs, If this bill passes, solar deployment is expected to drop nearly 40% by 2030 than what it was expected before. And as energy demand increases, driven by power-hungry AI data centers and natural gas LNG exports, Republicans are choosing to strangle America's supply of cheap solar and wind, which we're going to need for the AI revolution. The estimates are that AI itself over the next 10 years could double the need for electricity in our country. And what this bill will do is take wind and solar and batteries off the field and then say to the natural gas industry and oil industry, you figure out how to get it done. But that's not what obviously people in our country want. They're making decisions that have resulted in 2024 with 94% of all new electricity being wind and solar and batteries. So it's heading in just the opposite direction of where the American people are heading. So this is just economics 101. High demand plus low supply means higher energy prices for everyone. That's what they're setting up if we take wind and solar out of the mix, forcing families on average to pay $150 more per month on their energy bills just in 5 years, and $260 per month more each month in 10 years, because there won't be the competition and there won't be the supply. And the less the supply is, the higher the price for the remaining electricity in our society. And it will also destroy 840,000 American jobs by the year 2030. Jobs that would have been people up on roofs installing the solar, or having offshore wind work for electricians off of the Atlantic coast, or installing home efficiency into homes across our country, and just going through the home to make it more energy efficient, solar installation, fewer manufacturing jobs for solar and wind all across our country. Republicans want to frame their cuts as eliminating wasteful Democratic spending, but the communities and constituents they were elected to represent, they are going to stand to lose a great deal. The states with the highest spikes in energy prices are going to be South Carolina, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Louisiana under this bill. We're taking out the alternatives that could have helped to moderate the prices in those states. And the states with the largest job losses, Texas, Florida, Indiana, and Georgia. So this isn't a red state or a blue state issue. This is creating a national economic crisis. 80% of the IRA funding has gone to red states, 80%. Only 20% to blue states. And by the way, that's how the bill was designed. The extra tax breaks went to the states that would be energy transition states. And there's been an explosion by the hundreds of thousands of new jobs. And the Republican bill would make the United States the laggard, not the leader in innovation. Already China is investing over 4 times more than the United States in renewable energy. Here's China's plan. They plan on investing $1 trillion a year for the next 10 years every year. $10 trillion. And the same thing is true for Japan. They've already made an announcement that they're going to invest $1 trillion over the next 10 years. So we might as well just be gift wrapping the clean energy industry, gift wrapping it for China and for other countries to be the global leader. So that's where we are. Instead of catching up and overtaking China, this bill will seed more jobs and more progress. And Republicans are putting our health and our planet up for sale. This bill would increase emissions equivalent to putting 72 million more cars on the road, and eliminates pollution reduction programs leading to approximately 930 additional premature deaths every single year. So that's the plan when it comes to clean energy, and it is going to be an absolute disaster for us. And additionally, as affirmed last night, Republicans want to slash over $1 trillion from our healthcare system. And the House already passed cuts that would rip $800 billion from Medicaid and $500 billion from Medicare. The Senate Republicans released text last night that doesn't just support these cuts, but makes them actually worse. And their changes would make it harder for people to stay on their insurance. It would create more paperwork for patients to fill out. It would make it more difficult for states to fund their health care programs. And it would leave less people with access to health care across our nation. It would take 16 or 17 million people and take away their insurance in our country. So this isn't just line items or a spreadsheet. This is people's lives. If we cut people off their health insurance and less money goes to hospitals, nursing homes, health clinics, people will not be able to get health care. People will lose their local hospitals, nursing homes, and clinics. Health workers will lose their jobs, and rural communities could lose their biggest employers. People will be forced to make impossible decisions about whether their health care is worth going into bankruptcy or medical debt. And if Republicans pass this bill, instead of addressing our country's health care crisis, we will be supercharging. But they don't need to listen to me. Here's what the experts have found. A study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that Republican cuts would increase the number of people skipping medical care because of costs from nearly 129,000 people to nearly 839,000 people a year. A study from Yale and Penn found that federal budget cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act would lead to 51,000 deaths per year. And just last week, I released data produced by the Sheps Center at the University of North Carolina about how substantial cuts to Medicare and Medicaid could force 338 hospitals across the country into financial distress, leading them to cut services or close the hospital altogether. Where are those hospitals? Well, in Kentucky, there are 35 of them that could be at risk for their viability. In Louisiana, it's 33 hospitals. These are rural hospitals. They rely upon Medicaid. They rely upon the Affordable Care Act to pay the bills. So this is something that is going to be very, very dangerous for hundreds of rural hospitals put on the brink because of the decisions made by Republicans in this Congress and in this White House. This is a lethal risk to take on to pay the tax breaks for billionaires. If this bill passes and even one patient loses their insurance because of burdensome paperwork in a single hospital or nursing home, the responsibility will fall on anyone who voted yes on this bill. And our state and local public health officials know this risk, which is why they're asking to stop these cuts. The Louisiana State House, with a Republican majority, passed a resolution just this week asking Congress to, quote, oppose sweeping or indiscriminate cuts to Medicaid and to instead work in partnership with states to strengthen and preserve the program for the future. That's the Louisiana State House Republicans. The Houghton County Board of Commissioners in Michigan voted to oppose Medicaid cuts. 52 organizations in Alabama, including the Alabama Cancer Society and Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, churches all across the state wrote to the governor urging opposition to health care cuts, citing the need for more care and less bureaucracy. And on June 12th, 900 state and local elected officials from across the country, including mayors and state senators and representatives, attorney generals, all stood up to come out against, quote, the damaging and reckless plan. And these proposed cuts are as dangerous as they are pointless. So I'm going to conclude on this. Donald Trump and Republicans only need to rush these cuts through to guarantee tax breaks for billionaires. So the people who will benefit the most are the upper 0.1%. And as millions more Americans lose their health care, and billionaires who can afford concierge medicine will get a handout from the government. The rich will get richer, while the sick, that is the poorest, are going to be left without their health care. They're the ones who are going to lose their insurance. This is what this billionaire boondoggle is all about. It takes financial security from children, rips dinner off the family table, and crushes people's opportunities for health and financial security and sells it away to the ultra-wealthy. This is not a big, beautiful bill, as Donald Trump would call it. It is a big billionaire buy-off and a bludgeoning of our health, our economy, our future. We don't have to do this. Making these cuts is optional, and I'm asking my Republican colleagues to please vote no. We can do a lot better with this legislation. Please, please let us negotiate a sensible resolution of this legislation. And with that, Mr. President, I yield.